What's up, YouTube? So today we're gonna rebuild a carburetor. Woohoo! I'm not a mechanic. I've done this a few times though, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I have the manual right there to help guide us through this. All right, so let's dive into it. You're gonna need a rebuild kit. You're gonna need your carburetor. You're gonna need a couple screwdrivers. This is a JAS, it's not a Phillips. It's a little different. It's different enough that if you're trying to unscrew these, yours might be just normal screws. Mine are the hex heads. Here, you can see this one here. That's a normal screw, but it's actually a JIS screw. And it's just different enough that you will strip the screws out. So I'd highly recommend getting a JIS screwdriver for this. But we're just gonna take off this here where the throttle cables go. Get it started. Oh, making progress. Oh, you're also gonna need some carb cleaner before I get too ahead of myself. Some compressed air or a compressor if you have it. I got one, it's just late and I don't wanna use it. Then if you're like me, you have these hex heads, just an Allen key to get these out. So we're gonna start by taking off the top here. Or you know what, before we do that, let's look at it all. So this is your choke, right? We can take this off if we wanted, but I don't want to, there's no reason to. It doesn't really get in the way, you can work around it. This hose here, it comes down to the bottom, right above the float bowl. This goes to your gas tank. This is where the fuel comes from. Then this is a vacuum line up here. And mine is it's in pretty bad condition. So we're gonna replace this. See, if you bend it, you can see these cracks. It's probably fine, but it's on its way out. So, I mean, it's a hose, I'm just gonna replace it. So you may or may not have this. This is called the Accelerator Pump. Basically what it does is when you turn the throttle, right? It does this, opens this valve. That's normal. But for us weirdos with this model, the Accelerator Pump, it pushes on this. There's a bar right here underneath this rubber piece, and it pushes down on a diaphragm in there and pretty much is supposed to somehow get rid of some of that carburetor lag. But if you don't have it, then you just have one less thing to worry about. What else? This. So this is the idle air mixture screw. Yours might be plugged. I have this here. If you want to get one of these, you can order them on Amazon or whatever. It's a idle air mixture thumb screw or something. I'll put a link to it. But basically, if you want to install this, you can drill this shaft out, get a pick, pop it out, and then unscrew the screw and put this in its place. But let's get back to taking this apart. Okay, so when you pull this top piece off, this is the vacuum diaphragm or something. You can see it's spring loaded, right? So be careful with it. Yeah. Here's our diaphragm spring. Now this whole rubber piece is called the diaphragm, and we're gonna pull it out, and with it comes the slide. And then this is also our needle here. And we have something to kind of hold the needle in place. So you're gonna set all this aside. You may have some washers under your needle. So if you do, be careful, don't lose them. And once we get this out, we wanna inspect it, right? You wanna pull on it, not too hard, but just kind of stretch it, just like we did with the hose. You wanna look for any tears. This one looks pretty good. If you do have any tears in it, you can pull it out. Then when you put the new one on, kind of stretch it real tight. There's a little lip on this side and this side. You gotta squeeze it in there. It's kind of a pain, but yeah, you can do that, or you can buy the whole new slide assembly. Now we can start looking at the bottom. So now we're gonna take off the float bowl. That's these 4 screws or hex heads if you have it. Okay, so this is your float bowl. So this gasket in here. This is why you need the kit, mainly, is for this. Always you want to use a new gasket here every time you take this apart because this will leak. This is where all your gas sits. So when you turn the fuel off, your petcock off on your bike and it keeps running, this is where all the gas is, right? It's still in here, it's still running through the carburetor. So we're gonna take this, set it aside. Then we have the main body. So here we have our jets, here and here. All right, so this one that sticks down lower, that is your main jet. Then you have your pilot jet down in this hole here. So we are going to take these out. You want to be very careful with them. You don't want to break them. Pilot jet first. It's this little guy right here. I'm gonna put that in the float bowl for now. Now we're gonna take out our main jet. It looks like our emulsion tube is coming with it. So there's this long tube here and the jet sticks in it. So mine is stuck together right now. You can see, here's the main jet. We have a face for it. So we could, we could unscrew this from here. So I'm gonna go stick it in a vise and do just that. All right, so we got it out. Here's the jet, goes in the tube like this, screws in. So you wanna make sure that these are all clean, right? So this is what the carburetor cleaner is for. You're gonna soak all these pieces unless your kit comes with new ones. If your kit does come with new ones, if you can see on here, these have numbers, right? This one says 150. I don't know if you can see that. The light has to hit it just right, but there's a number stamped in there. This one says 150 for the main jet, and our pilot jet says 50. Your setup might be different depending on what you're running. This is how you tune your bike, right? So with these different jets. So you can get them in different sizes. The numbers denote the different sizes. So now I'm gonna take this out too. Our idle air mixture screw, or if you have the thumb screw, you can do that. Before you take it out, you wanna rotate it in all the way so we can see and count the turns. So we can see that this is facing over here. We have a little dot, right? So we're gonna go half a turn in. That's a full turn in. 1.5 turns in, 2 turns in, 2.5, almost 3. So now we can unscrew it. When we put it all back together, we can screw it all the way in until it stops and then pull it back about 3 turns. So it's in the same spot as it was when we took it apart. So you want to inspect this too. You want to make sure that your needle's not damaged. So it's a really fine tip needle. You need to make sure that's not damaged. Be careful with it. And then there's like a spring and some washers in here too. All right, so I had to fish around with some of these sharp tweezers to get the spring out. But this is what the whole assembly should look like. You should have a piece of rubber, a little O-ring. And I have a copper washer. Yours could be a different material. You just need a little washer and then a spring. Or sometimes this whole thing is flipped where you get your spring, then your washer, and then your O-ring. I'm pretty sure either of those is fine as long as, you know, the O-ring's on the outside of something, it should be fine. So we're gonna set that aside. Also, while I was pounding away on it, this popped out. This is like a needle guide or something. It guides the needle. It goes down in here. So there's also this and that. As the slide comes down, your needle just goes in here. We can take off the float bowl too. So, or the float, sorry. So there's a pin right here. push the pin in. Oh, this one's being difficult. All right, we're gonna try this. Let's move these. So I have an old carb needle, this one with the clips, the one I have in there. I'm gonna keep using that because you can adjust the positions. I like it more. We're gonna take the old carb needle and try and use it as a punch to get this out. There we go. There. So this just goes in here like this, and then this needle plugs this hole. This needs to be at a specific height, so we're gonna set that later. Your kit should also come with a new float needle. So that is about everything we're going to take off of here. We still have the accelerator pump, this thing. But while we do that, I'm gonna spray the body down with Carb Cleaner. So all these holes you see, you wanna spray your Carb Cleaner in them. Make a mess. Definitely make a mess. Oh, it caught my eye. Okay. I'm back with some glasses. Don't get this stuff in your eye. It really hurts. Sadly, this isn't the first time this has happened to me. Getting Carb Cleaner in your eye, it sucks. Yeah, suck it, I got glasses on. Ugh! Got on my forehead. Oh, it burns the skin. Woo! Yeah, this stuff is gnarly. All right, so now at the same time, we're gonna take an old cup from Cane's Chicken. This is my garage cup. Don't ever drink out of this cup again. We're gonna put all our internal pieces in here that don't have rubber, right? Throw that in. Yeah, so anything with rubber, I guess I should pull that needle out, the float needle. Anything with rubber you don't want in there because this stuff will destroy it. Like if you got it on your vacuum slide diaphragm, it would be bad for it. So don't, like, be careful with it. Don't get it where it ain't supposed to go. All right, now we're gonna set this aside. Set these aside so they can soak. And you may or may not have to deal with this, but I do. So here we go. This is the accelerator pump. We'll pull these off. Okay, so this is under a little bit of tension too. There's a small spring in here. Be careful when you take it apart. Spring is on the outside. The rubber diaphragm's on the inside. That's it. I'm gonna throw our spring in there. Let that soak. If you ever need to drain it, I guess I should have done this at the beginning to get all the gas out, but there's this screw here. If you unscrew this, that lets all the gas out of this hole, I think. No, there's a hole down here. Okay, so this part here, on the other side, there's a small hole in here that drains out of here. So if you ever want to drain your carburetor before you clean it, it might be a good idea to do that. So we're gonna pull this apart too. That should be all the rubber bits. So now we can spray a carb cleaner and everything. Okay, so while we give all that time to soak in the cup, let's open our kit we got and see what's in here. See what we can reuse. Okay, we got a new float. Looks like the small one is the Accelerator Pump spring that goes in here. The big one is the diaphragm spring. I don't think it matters. We have a new diaphragm. We don't need to use that because ours looks fine. Careful with the O-rings. The spring seat. So we got one of those. What else is in here? This to me is the most important thing, is this gasket. Yeah, we have a new float needle. We'll use that. We have a new diaphragm for the accelerator pump. The old one looks better actually, so I'm gonna keep that. What is this? The idle mixture screw. I like mine, it is the big thumb knob, so we're not gonna use that. We're not gonna use the needle. Don't think we're gonna use the emulsion tube. There's no marking on the main jet, so I'm not using that. The pilot jet's a 45 and I don't need to change that, so not gonna deal with that. It's the idle mixture spring. Sure, I can use that. It's like some of these things, like I don't know how you mess this up so bad that you need a new one of these. But brass is cool. We'll use the brass one, I guess. We got a couple O-rings. Okay, so these are the two different floats we have, right? And measuring the float height, once we get it in there, there's this whole process I'll walk you through. But you can see that this one over here is a little bit taller. You see that? So little things like this will change your float height, which could give you crappy acceleration or, I don't know, any kind of fuel issue. I like this one more. So we're gonna go with this one. And we're gonna go with this needle. So we take our float, we take the needle, put the needle on this little tab, and this tab is what we bend to adjust everything, right? So then we put, there we go. So stick all this here, and we grab our pin. And put it in. And I'm using the new pin because it's much easier to get in and out, and once it's all put together, it's not coming out. So we're gonna do that. There's this little pin on the back of the needle, right? And that's getting pushed in and out, just like this. That's what we're looking at. Okay, so here we are. You're on the table now, or the camera is. You just got a screwdriver propping this up. The manual says to keep it at about 20%, 15 to 20% of an angle. And then you need to measure the height of the float. And it should be about 11 millimeters. You could be like half a millimeter off in either direction. So I have my caliper set. We have the depth gauge. This should be here like this. So we need to move them in a little bit. We need to bend a little tab we were talking about. So here, this little metal tab that the needle's sitting on. So we need to bend that. So I'm gonna bend that. We're gonna check it again. Okay, so I bent it a little bit. Now let's check again. And that looks pretty dang close. So basically this, from the top of here to flush of here, needs to be 11 millimeters, sorry, when this starts to get pressed on, like right before it gets pressed on. I think that's all they're trying to say. Rule of thumb, if you don't have all this stuff, just try and make this parallel, right? Make the top of this parallel with that. Yeah, that should be the correct float height. All right, so I think we've let everything soak long enough. We got our float height set. It was a giant pain, but it's over now. So let's make some space. Start pulling stuff out of the old cup. But let's start putting this all back together. Starting here. So we want to throw our diaphragm in. One of these sides has a lip. This side's flat, this side is a lip. Put the lip in the hole. We're gonna put our spring on. Grab our plate. There's an O-ring here. If you miss this O-ring, you're gonna leak. So in our kit, we have some extras. Looks like this one's the same size. Where'd our spring go? Using this one? This one. That O-ring goes over this hole here. After you tighten it down, you want to go around, inspect it, make sure you didn't pinch the diaphragm anywhere, it's not sticking out, nothing's bulging, it's nice and flush. Okay, so this plugs this hole to let fuel out. We're gonna place this O-ring, replace. Move the new one into position. Awesome. Now we go back over here. So before you put your jets in, focus. You want to look at these holes, hold them up to the light, see if you can see the light through it. Look for anything protruding. If you see anything, that's what the compressed air is for. Okay, so now we're gonna put our main jet or needle jet in. You have, oh, don't drop that. You have this thing, right? This is the one that came in it. It could be either color, it's fine. As long as they're about the same size. I'm gonna use the brass one because brass is dope. And our whole assembly is going to go like this. And then our, the right jet? 150, yeah. This, I'm gonna put everything in like this. So starting here, it'll only fit in one way. So you drop it in, you can kind of see it sticking out the top in here. If we flip it over too far, you can see it disappear. And then there it is again. So then we put our tube in. There we go. It's not too tight, you have to take it out later. Don't be dumb. Then our main jet. Mine's a 150, yours could be whatever. And just get it, it'd be about hand tight, you know? Gonna make sure these are nice and clean because that's what's delivering gas to your bike. Okay, so now we have our idle mixture screw, idle air mixture screw. So this is the air mixture. If your hole's plugged and you didn't take this out, then you don't need to do this. So we're gonna put our spring on first, then our metal washer, and then our O-ring. Drop it in. Then we're gonna screw it in all the way, then back it off 3 turns. About 3 turns, just before 3 turns. 2 3/4. Yours might be different, it depends on what you did before. Okay, so I remember it was over here before. So we got 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, about 3. So we're gonna leave it there. You can't see what I'm looking at. I put a little notch on it. So that little dot, I just hit it with a punch. We can put the float bowl on now. So we take our new gasket, throw it on here, put it all together. And me, because I have this dumb thing, I have to get this in there too. There we go, looks good. Doesn't look like I'm pinching that seal anywhere. Sweet. All right, now to the top. So we're gonna drop that in. And then we put in our needle. Make sure it seats in that collar we put in earlier. And then we get, where is it? It's white. Yours might be a different color. Mine was white. It was matching with the paper towels. I couldn't see it. So when you put this in, I don't know if you can see this. So there's that hole in there. Let's get your focus. There. So there's that hole back there. This one. You need to make sure that these feet in here of this guy, these little feet, aren't covering that up. If they do, you're gonna have problems. So now we take this, put our slide in. If you have trouble getting it in, make sure the needle's going in that brass collar we put in earlier. Now, get our big spring, stick it on top. And then before we go any further, we wanna make sure that this rubber piece is, the diaphragm is seating in here nicely. This needs to create a good seal. If it's hanging over like this, put the top on and pinch it, you're gonna rip it, then you're gonna have a bunch of weird issues. Then we put our top on the top, this little spot, make sure the spring goes in there, keeps it all steady. Then be gentle, you don't want to mess up that diaphragm. This little piece goes in first. It saves you from breaking this piece of plastic. What? Where did it come from? Anyways, this is the last screw. You might want to keep these loose until you can get your throttle cables on. Because you're gonna have to play with this a little bit. Just make sure you get everything tight before you put it all back on the bike. And I mean, that's it. That's how you rebuild your car. All right, so I hope you guys found that interesting. I think it's pretty boring. I hate rebuilding carbs. It's not the fun thing for me. It's not my favorite thing to do. If I messed anything up, if you caught any mistakes I made, please let me know. And that's gonna do it for this one. Yay. Next time will be more fun, I promise. We're gonna move some stuff around, relocate the ignition, the spark plug coils, the horn. We're gonna get rid of that. Don't think we're gonna move the speedometer, but we're gonna get a bunch of stuff moved around and ready to put the gas tank and stuff on. So next one's gonna be way more interesting. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe, and we'll see you then.